all friends and colleagues. Very glad to see you again. Last time we had a briefing after the high-level week. Today, I would like to focus on the third committee and human rights issues. The work of the third committee of the General Assembly is going on. China actively participated in the discussion on all agenda items of the third committee and presented China's propositions, offered China's solutions, and made China's contribution. At the general debate, I made a joint statement on unilateral coercive measures on behalf of 31 countries and a joint statement on global solidarity for vaccine equity on behalf of 76 countries. We all know the importance of vaccine fair distribution, accessibility, and affordability at this critical juncture. China and the African group also initiated a joint statement on combating racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, and related intolerance, which was supported by 78 countries. That's also a very, very important topic at this moment. It's the shared aspiration of China and the wider developing world that in promoting and protecting human rights, dialogue and cooperation is the right way forward. Unfortunately, at today's interactive dialogue of the committee, the United States, France, and a few other countries once again abused the platform of the third committee to make groundless accusations against China, spread political virus and disinformation, and poison the atmosphere of cooperation. China immediately expressed its firm opposition and rejection. Over 80 countries supported China's position in their joint or individual statements, forming a strong momentum in support of China at the committee. The US and a few other countries failed again at their attempts to smear China's human rights. I must point out that the accusations by the US and a few other countries are totally unfounded. We have on many occasions introduced the real situation in Xinjiang. Right before the start of the third committee, our mission and the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region together hosted a virtual event titled Xinjiang is a Wonderful Land. We invited representatives of ordinary people from Xinjiang and foreign friends living there to tell their real stories. You can find the video of the whole event on UN Web TV. Xinjiang's door is always open. More than 1,600 diplomats, journalists, and religious figures from over 100 countries have visited the region. What they saw, heard, and experienced have shattered the lies by those Western countries. The Chinese people's life is getting better day by day. We are satisfied with and proud of such achievements, and those achievements are widely recognized and praised by people around the world. The happy lives and the smiles of the Chinese people are the best manifestation of China's human rights situation. Those Western countries may fool themselves, but they cannot fool the world. The attempt by the US and a few other countries to obstruct China's development is doomed to fail. China's development path is chosen by the Chinese people. Those countries are in no position to make choice for the Chinese people, let alone lecture China. China's progress is unstoppable. No one can deprive the Chinese people of their rights to live a happy life. The days when Western countries could bully and oppress developing countries are long gone. The US and a few other countries are desperately trying to cover up their own terrible human rights record, but the world sees it clearly. The US conducted a genocide against the American Indians. The US suppressed its own people to the point they have to yell, "I can't breathe." The US ignored the deaths of over 700,000 nationals due to the pandemic, and the US stained its hands with the blood of hundreds of thousands of Muslim civilians in the Middle East and Central Asia. The list of human rights violations by those countries goes on. In fact, we have prepared a fact sheet for your reference, and it's by no means exhaustive. Human rights are not their cover-up. Blaming other countries will not wipe off their own misdeeds, but only reveal their evil and hypocrisy. The US and a few other countries, in the name of democracy, have been trying to get rid of those who dare to hold different views, but all their attempts will end in vain. Democracy is not a few countries' privilege, but a right enjoyed by people of all countries. The best democracy is to let people to be the real master of the country, instead of making them the cannon fodder in political manipulation. The world is diverse. So are the approaches to realize democracy. Whether a country is democratic or not should be judged by its own people, not some individuals outside the country, let alone some individual Western countries. Tragedies in countries such as Afghanistan, Iraq, and Libya have proven time and again that military intervention from the outside and the so-called democratic transformation entail nothing but harm to those countries affected and to the ideal of democracy itself. The attempts by the US and a few other countries to politicize and manipulate human rights issues will find no support. People around the world are clear-eyed about the truth. Cuba delivered a joint statement in support of China on behalf of 62 countries, stressing that Xinjiang, Hong Kong, and the Tibet affairs are China's internal affairs, and no country should interfere in. Kuwait made a joint statement in support of China on behalf of 3 Gulf states, stressing the objective, constructive, and non-political principle on human rights issues. In addition, nearly 20 countries have made individual statements to support China. They all oppose the interference in other countries' internal affairs in the name of human rights and called for following the purposes and the principles of the UN Charter. History and reality have proven time and again that the finger-pointing, pressuring, and bullying by countries like the US have lost them all the support from people around the world. They are on the opposite side of the international community. And then there are a few other countries like France and the United Kingdom. They had terrible human rights record in the past and are now submitting their independence and autonomy and serving as the henchmen of the superpower, as if they can gain superiority by acting at its beck and call. But the truth is, they gave up their own dignity and will win no respect from others. The world is developing and humankind is progressing. The US and a few other countries choose to stick to the wrong path, which goes against the prevailing trend of the times. Eventually, they will only bring disgrace to themselves and become the laughingstock of the international community and the sinners of history. respecting and protecting human rights is a basic spirit of the modern civilization. It has been written into China's constitution and become general practices in the Chinese society. Under the leadership of the Communist Party of China, the Chinese people of all ethnic groups have made tireless efforts and realized the first centenary goal. We have built China into a moderately prosperous society in all respects. We have brought a historic solution to absolute poverty in China and achieved the SDG on poverty alleviation 10 years in advance. The Chinese people enjoy more human rights and freedoms than ever before. Human rights are universal, but the paths toward them are diverse. China sticks to its human rights path with distinctive Chinese features that suits our national conditions and delivered better lives to the Chinese people. What we have achieved shows that this is a correct path with a bright future. We will firmly follow this path. Promoting and protecting human rights is an ongoing process. China welcomes all conducive and good faith suggestions, but we will never accept any political pressure based on lies or any lecturing. Our resolve to defend our sovereignty, security, and development interests remains unshakable, and our resolve to safeguard the fundamental interests and the dignity of the wider developing world remains unshakable. China will continue to conduct human rights exchanges and cooperation with other countries on the basis of equality and mutual trust. We will continue to provide China's wisdom and China's solutions and advocate peace, development, fairness, justice, democracy, freedom, and other values shared by all humanity. We will strive for the building of a community with a shared future for mankind and make an even greater contribution to the international human rights cause. I thank you for your attention. So now I'm ready to pick up a few questions from our press friends. The floor is open for you. I note that Michelle is asking a question. Michelle, how are you?
It's cutting in and out a little bit. I hope
Michelle, you have the floor now.
I had two questions.
No, I cannot hear you. Michelle, unmute yourself first.
Oh, hello. I think it's my internet connection. I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Yes.
Okay, great. I'll make this quick. Two questions after. Does China believe that Myanmar's junta and the Taliban in Afghanistan should be able to fill the Afghanistan seat at the UN? And on North Korea, we've heard some tough language from the US on North Korea yesterday. What does China believe is the best approach to find a solution to the tensions and to maybe get North Korea back to the negotiation table? Thank you.
Yes, Michelle, on the credentials of Myanmar and Afghanistan, what I can say is that it's indeed a question for the Credential Committee of the General Assembly. The committee has not met yet. We are supposed to meet in November. Definitely, I'm sure all members of the committee are looking at this issue in a very, very responsible and prudent manner. For China, definitely we will handle those issues on the basis of international law, on the relevant General Assembly rules and regulations, and based on our previous practice, we sincerely hope that we can find a good solution on both issues. On DPRK, yes, indeed, I also note the launching activity of DPRK, and we are also following the development of the situation attentively. It's really the moment calls for self-restraint. We do call on all relevant parties to stay calm and to stay with self-restraint, avoid taking provocative actions, and prevent the escalation of the tension. Yeah, you are asking what will be the best approach to deal with this issue. Indeed, even though the situation remains very complicated, I think the right approach is still to solve this problem through political and diplomatic efforts. So we call on all parties to take concrete actions and to really resume the dialogue and to narrow their differences so as to maintain the stability and the security of the Korean Peninsula. We do hope that the United States will take further steps along that direction. And meanwhile, for the Security Council, it has been always China's view that we should also address the humanitarian dimension caused by the sanctions imposed by the Security Council. We do have seen the negative impact because of the sanctions. As I have told you before, we have different dimensions in the resolutions adopted by the Security Council. So one of them is the reversible provisions contained in the relevant resolutions. So to make sure that we create a favorable environment for the settlement of the situation and of the tension, we need to take actions to address the humanitarian part by adjusting the sanctions imposed by the Security Council. China and Russia have tabled a draft resolution. It remains on the table. We sincerely hope that all countries will continue to pay attention to that draft resolution. And then with our joint efforts, we can make our contribution to the eventual settlement of the issue. I thank you, Michelle. Who will be next?
Ambassador Zhang, this is from China Central Television. How are you? I'm going to ask you this question in English. So on October 25th, 1971, we know that General Assembly passed the resolution 2758 to recognize People's Republic of China as the sole legal representative of China in the United Nations. And as the ambassador of China, this year marks the 50th anniversary, and you are the ambassador of China to the United Nations. What do you think is the significance of that? Thank you.
Well, Dezhi, you do have asked a question which is of great significance for both China and the United Nations. This year marks indeed the 50th anniversary of the restoration of the People's Republic of China's lawful seat in the United Nations. It was indeed a significant event, as I said, holds significance both for China and the United Nations. China has already held a number of events commemorating this 50th anniversary, and we will continue to organize a number of events. And one of them will be a big commemorative conference to be held in Beijing on October the 25th. I think the Secretary General will be also attending that commemorative conference. Well, over the past 5 decades, China has scored great achievements in its national development, played an increasingly bigger role in international affairs, and made important contribution to world peace and development. And while recalling what we have experienced in the past 5 decades, it's also a time to look forward to the future cooperation between China and the United Nations. And this year, the 50th anniversary is bringing us to a new starting point for China-UN cooperation. Moving forward, we will firmly champion multilateralism, uphold the purposes and the principles of the UN Charter, and support the UN to play a bigger role. That really serves as the foundation of China-UN cooperation. We will further participate in global development cooperation, implement the Global Development Initiative proposed by President Xi Jinping recently at the UN General Assembly, and share China's development opportunities with other countries. And we sincerely hope that the United Nations will put development on top of its agenda, and then to let all countries, developing countries in particular, to benefit from that. In doing so, China will make a new contribution to implementing the 2030 agenda and achieving common development. We have already lifted the remaining poor out of extreme poverty in China 10 years ahead of the schedule. And we will continue to make further contribution along that direction. We will also work together with countries around the world to jointly address global challenges like COVID-19 and climate change, and make our world safer, greener, and more beautiful. I'm sure you have read about reports concerning the Kunming COP15 conference. It was indeed a successful one, and it paved a good way for the second part of the meeting. I'm sure you have also heard President Xi's announcements in China's contribution in tackling global climate change. Definitely, we are ready to work closely with other parties, other countries, including making COP26 to be held in Glasgow a successful one. We will also continue to play our unique role as a major country. We will uphold fairness and justice, shoulder our due responsibilities, promote political and diplomatic settlement of disputes, oppose hegemony and bullying practices, and help the UN advance on the right course forward. So China is ready, and our support to the United Nations will continue to be consistent, endurable, and reliable. I thank you, Deji. Who will be? Benno, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Ambassador, for the briefing. Actually, Michelle asked my question, so I will just ask one question about Third Committee. In regard to the allegations from France, Germany, United States, UK, about human rights violations committed by China, you spoke today about misinformation and lies. I mean, these allegations could be easily debunked if you grant access to Michelle Bachelet to Xinjiang. Why is that not happening so far? And is there a way to change your mind?
Thank you, Bannon. This question has been asked many times, and I have answered it many times. Let me make it very clear. We have a standing invitation to Madame Bachelet, the High Commissioner for Human Rights. And actually, China has maintained good working relationship with the office of the High Commissioner. And we have invited the previous commissioners to visit China 8 times altogether. So we are willing to continue to maintain a good relationship. And at this moment, concerning the visit of the High Commissioner to China, consultations are still going on. What I should point out again is that this visit should be a friendly one, should not be a so-called investigation with presumed guilt. That's not acceptable to China. Actually, at this moment, Bannon, the barriers are not on the Chinese side. It's the politicized practice, it's the preset conditions of a number of Western countries which have made this visit not impossible to happen. So I think if they want to see a visit, they should change their course and they should give up their politicization of this issue and to remove the barriers. That's my answer to your question, Ben. Thank you. Next, South China Morning Post, right? Mm-hmm. Yes, South China Morning Post.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Ambassador, for doing this today. Really appreciate it. It's a little bit of your previous answer sort of covered this, but as you may know, Deputy Assistant Secretary Rick Waters this morning spoke about the resolution 2758, and he said essentially that the resolution spoke to the credentialing, but that China's practices of trying to limit and squeeze Taiwan from the various areas of the UN where it could contribute, including the WHO, including transport and Interpol, actually undermine global prosperity, and that China has exceeded its authority and mandate on this, and is often using its position to limit NGO participation and observer status in various special agencies. So thank you again for meeting with us, and I was wondering if you could respond to that.
Well, many can be said about that question. I think the fundamental thing we should understand is that there is only one China in the world, and Taiwan is an inalienable part of China's territory. And the government of the People's Republic of China is the sole legal government representing the whole of China. This is a basic fact, and this is a fact recognized by the whole international community and constitute the basic norms governing international relations. According to the UN Charter, as a province of China, Taiwan has no right to participate in the United Nations. and international organizations composed of sovereign member states. And that should be made very clear. China pursues a peaceful reunification of Taiwan. However, the question is that some countries in the world are trying to interfere in China's internal affairs, making fuss of the issue of Taiwan and trying to undermine China's sovereignty and territorial integrity. And China is firmly opposed to that. And the Democratic Progressive Party of Taiwan is also trying to seek the so-called Taiwan independence through the support of some anti-China separatist forces. But that definitely is a misconception and a miscalculation. They will never get there. And for China, we are completely opposed to that. And what China is doing at this moment is to respond to the separatist attempts by the Democratic Progressive Party and the relevant anti-China forces. And we are in defense. We are fighting in maintaining our sovereignty and the territorial integrity. We are not the troublemaker. On the contrary, some countries, the US in particular, is taking dangerous actions, leading the situation in Taiwan Strait into a dangerous direction. I think at this moment, what we should call is that the United States to stop such practice. Dragging Taiwan into a war definitely is in nobody's interest. I don't see that the United States will gain anything from that. That's my answer to you. Thank you.
CBS.
Yes, hello, Ambassador. It's Pamela Falk from CBS News, and I'm sorry I don't have video. Thank you for the briefing. My question is a follow-up on an earlier question about the DPRK. What format do you suggest for talks? You heard U.S. Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield say 2 days ago, no preconditions, we all have to get back to talks. How would you format them? There have been different kinds in the past. And does China still believe in freeze for freeze as a way to begin denuclearization? Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela. I have been following your Twitter all the times. I'm a fan of yours. Indeed, that's also a question for us. You know, we have seen the US review on their relationship with DPRK. And we have heard that US is willing to be engaged in dialogue with DPRK. Then they should do it to improve the relationship, improve the situation in the Korean Peninsula. all the relevant parties, the US in particular, should take the lead in talking with the other party instead of staying there, and instead of trying to pressure the other party with extreme measures. So if they are willing to see a new situation, if they want to see the good results, and it's really time to take actions. And we do hope that, for us, we do see the situation as a two-way traffic. One party should take actions to walk towards the other side. And then with the joint efforts of both sides, we can see some good results. Otherwise, we will still stay in a vicious circle. Then harsh words, then provocative actions, and then more sanctions. With that, we will never see the end of the situation and of the tension. So we need to break the deadlock at this moment. So that's indeed a question I hope you can also ask our American colleagues, and to let us know when they are ready to take the first steps. And thank you, Pamela. Okay, can I have my last question? And I do have some other engagement. Say, Ali, yeah. Ali, you have the floor now. Okay. Ali, are you there?
Hello, sir.
Yes, please.
Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Thank you very much for doing this briefing. My question was also about October 25, the restoration of China's legal rights at the United Nations, in which Pakistan played a very important role. But my colleague from China TV has already asked the question, and you have given a detailed reply. But I just want to mention here, Ambassador, that I was present at that night, and I witnessed something which has never happened before. It was such an exciting night. Nobody knew what was going to happen, but the result was welcomed and was applauded by members of the United Nations in the General Assembly Hall. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Ali, and thank you for your kind words, and thank you for your comments. And I'm so happy to hear that you have been eyewitness. You have eyewitnessed this extremely important event. So that's indeed a historic moment, and sincerely hope that based on the sound and solid cooperation between China and the United Nations, we can see further developments between our cooperation, and then to see more contribution from China, and also to see a stronger role with the engagement of China, other countries, including Pakistan, to make our world more peaceful, more prosperous, more greener, and let's continue to work together along that direction. And thank you.
Thank you very much.
Colleagues, thank you all, and thank you for your participation. Thank you for your attention. And I will continue our practice like this to share our assessment on issues all of us are concerned, and then to make our joint contribution to the work of the United Nations. And thank you.
Thanks.